We now move to Unit 2, which is data representation using charts. Excel allows us to use a variety of charts to represent information in a much more easier to understand and informative manner, and manner which is aesthetic as well as pleasing to the eye. The key, however, is to understand which chart to use for what kind of data and how to best represent the charts using whatever tools are available in Excel. Now, there are a variety of charts which are available in Excel, which you could find if you click on this tab, Insert here on the top, and if you insert a set of charts here, you see all these variety of charts. Click on any kind of charts, and you get the entire range and list of charts. There are column charts, line charts, bar charts, pie charts, area charts, scatter charts, and combo charts. There are some others as well which would be used for stock charts, etc. But first, we are going to discuss these basic versions of charts and what kind of data do they work with. Right. So this particular section is going to discuss about a line chart. How do you deal with charts, and also look at extensively modifying the accompanying data around the charts, what kind of representation you can show with the chart, right? So as the name suggests, a line chart is nothing but a sort of a line that is created with the data that is available. Let's assume we have this company given to us who has sales from the month of January 2013 onwards all the way up to June 2015, and we're going to plot this using the tool of charts. So let's select this data. Now, just before we go there, a quick shortcut in terms of selecting data. If you press Control and press the down key, it takes you right at the end of the contiguous block of data. So if there is a continuous block of data, you will, let's say, have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I go right here, I press Control and I press the down key, it goes right at the bottom. I press up key, it goes right at the bottom. So Control with the down or up arrow key. Control Shift down key will allow me to select the entire set in one shot, right? That's what we're going to use. So press along with me. I'm going to press Control, I'm going to press Shift, and then I'm going to press right, and I'm going to press down, right? So Control Shift right and down, and it selects the entire set of data that is there, right? So we have selected this set of data. All we need to go is now go to the Insert tab, and to insert a chart. You see these lines here, the second one from the top, that's a line chart, right? So we're going to create a 2D line chart here. And as soon as you click on this after selecting the data, Excel automatically feeds in the data into the line chart, and the line chart appears as we see on the screen, right? Now, that's broadly the basic construct of the line chart that we get. It shows how sales are going up, uh, and there are indices on the left hand side. You look at the sales numbers on the horizontal scale, you see the dates essentially. Now let's play around with this a little bit in terms of trying to make this a little bit more aesthetic. So the first thing we can do is you can actually click on the chart element anywhere and go and click on these top two menu buttons here. So for example, you get a series of chart designs that you can create here that are available. So in fact, select the chart and click on this, and it automatically changes in a predefined format that is there. You could select this, you could select this, where it shows the data. So there are a lot of predefined formats. We'll look at which one suits the best to our kind of work. For example, this looks neat. We can go back to our initial chart that we were looking at, wherein we can basically delete this to begin with and just insert another one with the basic numbers, right? So either we could choose some of those, or we could click on format and then look at individual tabs and see what happens. So for example, chart title is what we have selected. Uh, we can give it as a example of line chart. We can actually remove the chart title. We can move it around a little bit in terms of understanding where does it appear. The chart title can actually come in terms of where you could represent it. So you could format the chart title here. You could format the fill of the chart title. As you see, there are options that will open up in Excel, which will talk about, can you put a solid fill within the chart title? Let's keep it as no fill at this point of time. You could look at alignment of the chart title as well, broadly, right? But for now, we'll keep it as it is. And all the functions that you can work on text, which is embolden it, underline it, work here, right? We'll just embolden it and leave it where it is in terms of example of line chart, right? Now, what else can we do? These axes, the x-axis and y-axis, they could also be kind of modified in terms of trying to understand how do you represent data better, right? So for example, in this particular case, let's say we want to modify the axis. You right click this and click on format axis. What you get here is the axis values, and you get maximum value and minimum values, right? So auto numbers are kind of created, 0 going all the way up to 2.5, so this is 2 crore 50 lakhs in terms of numbers that you see there, right? So maximum is given as 2.5 raised to the power 10 raised to power 7. That's the number that we see. And then you have major unit, which is like 50 lakhs, and minor units. You could change these. So let's say we want to change the major units to 25 lakhs. So the moment you do that, you see the units, the difference between these changes. You could also put in the top of the chart at something like uh, 3 crore. So essentially, if you want to represent it moving up or down, you could do based on that as well. Uh, there's an interesting function that Excel gives where you can actually display the units in terms of hundreds or thousands or millions. So for example, this entire thing could be shown in the form of, let's say, thousands. The moment you convert it to thousands, it puts a note of thousands there, and it automatically kind of reduces three zeros from the entire sheet, makes it much more readable. We'll again go to the initial numbers that we had so that it stays at a certain distance. We can also convert it to millions, where it goes from 5 million, 10 million, and so on and so forth, essentially, right? So we started with 5 millions and sales have gone up all the way up. So that could be done. We could once again similarly embolden it. You could change the text depending on the font. You could increase or decrease the font size. Even this millions tab that has come up, you could embolden it, change the text of this using similar text formatting. And you can also move this around a little bit. So you could put millions here. So it becomes easier for us to read. So that's how you kind of go ahead and change the axis. You could also add decimal points. So in axis options, you get a whole list of options. Once again, you can put a fill in the axis. We don't need that as of now. We could look at what kind of text functionalities we could bring in. Text options primarily. Number is where we have a custom number. We could click it to a number and we could add, let's say, 1 decimal point if we want. So essentially that allows you to add a decimal point in case that is required, right? So we remove it, put it as 0 once again, and that's broadly it in terms of the numbers on the y-axis that we had. Now let's click on the x-axis, click on a right click on format axis. When you format axis here, it is this time it is a date axis. So obviously you see these dates being slanted. That's because the major unit is 2 months. If I click this to 1 month, it'll all become vertically aligned, essentially like the way we see in the screen right now. And we can embolden this as well, just to kind of make it more in tune with what we have. We can also increase the unit, the difference in between. So we could make it 3 months. We could actually make it 6 months as well. If you make it 6 months, it essentially kind of gives a number in the horizontal format now on this axis, right? So that's the axis text options. We could look at axis options in detail, and then it gives the maximum and minimum numbers. You see the maximum number you see is till Jan 2015 going up to kind of June 2015, Jan 2013 going up to June 2015. And the display obviously does not display the last one because that's where it ends, and the space does not allow it to come there, right? Then so that's broadly the data that you have. You could also have some sort of a data saying dates could be in reverse order like this. There's a small tab here says dates in reverse order, and you could invert the curve in that format if that gives a better representation of what we are looking at. And and we have tick marks where axis position could be on tick marks that could come in. What are tick marks? Now, if we look at tick marks, the major type is outside, minor type is none. Essentially, in this particular case, it's not very evident, but you will see if you try and spot it, there is going to be a very minor tick mark that you see here. Just above this, there is a small tick mark that comes here. That is where the tick marks are for an axis. So essentially, we could look at the tick marks and essentially put them inside, outside. We could cross them as well. So if you look at the cross tick marks now, they appear on a crossed format, right? So essentially, that's the axis options that come along. You could look at the line color as well. So essentially, the color of the line as of now is gray, but we could change it to black. Similarly, I could go here and color it to black. So it kind of creates a clear demarcated line that comes in. You do see these grid lines behind. Essentially, I can click on these grid lines. You see the grid lines get selected. I could also kind of color the grid lines in whatever format I want. I could just press delete on this as well. So if I delete it, the grid lines go away, makes the chart even more clearer in the view. And then finally, the data itself. Let's say this blue color I want to change to red. So when I select this and say format data series, it says fill, and within the fill line comes in, and when you look at the line, I can change the color to, let's say, red. So it becomes red. I can change the width of the line, make it darker or lighter. So let's say we make it as 1.5. I can go down here and there's this tab called the smooth line. So you see all these jerks that come here. If you want to remove these jerks, just click on the smooth line and you see the curves become evident on this particular curve. Looks much more readable, much more palatable to the eye in terms of the data that we have. So that's how sales of this particular company have grown over this period. Excel interestingly also allows you to introduce something like a trend line. So essentially, if you right click on the data series and you click this tab here, you see this add trend line. It kind of puts a trend line in between, which says how the sales have been growing. So it's a good addition there. We can remove the trend line again by just deleting that. You can right click, and then there are other options around data series as well. So you could add data labels, for example. If you add data labels, it'll put in the data in terms of thousands and in millions, and what is the million sales at each point of time, each month will come out. You could format the data labels again in terms of the data that you're looking at. We could choose to remove the data labels once again. Let's right click, add data labels. We can add data callouts as well. This becomes a little bit difficult to kind of grasp and understand, so I will do a Control Z on this. Because the chart is small in size, it kind of puts a challenge. Now, there are two other areas that are available here. This portion, the rectangle that we have selected, is something called as the plot area. We can format the plot area. Once again, you could have a fill in the plot area itself. You could fill it with any color that you feel like doing. And that's broadly the plot area that we have looked at. And then you have the chart area itself, which is the outer area. So click anywhere on the chart, right click and format chart area, and you could put a fill here as well. So you could put a solid fill there. You could change the color of the fill. You could put in, let's say we want to put in the orange fill here, and we want to put the orange fill here as well. And now the chart looks fairly consistent in terms of the color on the chart area as well as the plot area. We have removed the grid lines. We have created a simple two-dimensional line chart in terms of what data was given to us, right? So that's the chart that we have. Now let's go to format, and whatever we had seen in terms of the formatting is available here as well. And when we go to design, it also allows you to change the chart type. So you could change the chart type within a line chart to a variety of other data points. So for example, you could make it a three-dimensional line chart, the last one that you see. When you click on this, it gives you sort of a three-dimensional view in terms of the chart probably progressing from inside towards outside, right? You could again change the chart type, put some of these data points, which essentially also put in tick marks or points on each of the month's data. Then you could again change the chart type and probably put in the simpler one that we had begun with to begin with, right? So that's broadly all kinds of options that we could carry out on the charts. The more we practice with more and more data, the easier it would become to kind of comprehend and use the charts. This is the basic simplest form of chart, which is the line chart, which can practically be used for any kind of data that you're trying to represent to show a trend. So sales, profitability, stock prices, uh, growth in career kind of things could all come in this kind of a chart, which is the basic chart called line chart.